all right. A very, very happy Thursday and welcome to the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Justin. Today is February 2nd of 2026. And we are live. Thank you guys for tuning into our show here on our YouTube channel. Want to thank everyone and appreciate everyone. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. And today, we'll see how far content goes. I'll stretch it out through an hour for sure. But we'll talk about the Reds, and I'm going to be honest. I'm disappointed with the Cincinnati Reds. I really am. I feel like they messed up an opportunity to win a division or to win a series that they should have won earlier this week. And, sure, they finished 500 in their first homestands of the season. And I guess we can settle for that. But right now, there is a clear indication based off of this past couple days' performance where we lost both yesterday and on Tuesday, the final scores of 8-3. And I just feel that right now, there's a clear indication that tells us, hey, look, Pittsburgh is not only better on paper, but they're better overall at the moment. And I can't live with that at the moment. I struggle to wrap my head around that. So we'll get into yesterday's game. They have an off day today. We'll get you guys ready for what's to come here over the weekend. We'll also talk about, I want to review the Reds' first 6 games. I put something on Facebook. You guys could read it if you guys like. But I kind of gave you some statistics about the first 6 games the Cincinnati Reds held. So we'll talk about that, give you a National League Central update. We'll talk about some sports news. And Drew McIntyre opened up on the Chris Van Vliet, Inside show. And he opened up about his title reign earlier this year. I think you guys understand my fair point and take on on his title reign, but I want to share what has been just talked about here on that podcast. So I popped it up. We'll revisit that here in today's episode. But let's get right into the Reds and the Pirates game yesterday. The Pirates pulled away with an 8-3 victory, and this gave the Reds their 3rd loss of the year, so they're now tied 3-3. They're playing 500, and they're tied for 3rd place in the NL Central. Pirates have the upper game advantage. They're 2-1 right now, so if there's a tiebreaker at some point, the Pirates have that advantage. And the Reds are under 500 when it comes down to division play. There's no way around that, unfortunately. Paul Skeens, he went 5 innings, giving up 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Andrew Abbott, he went 5 2/3 of an inning, giving up 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 1 home run. When it comes down to our pitching, I'm going to be honest with you. I am impressed. Sure, the runs, the hits, the walks are there, and I feel like that should hopefully correct itself over time. But this is, but to be able to give you 5 and 6 innings and to bounce back from a downfall from what we, instead of being pulled out in the 2nd or 3rd inning because it didn't go our way, I can appreciate that. So, it's a big tip to the cap here when it comes down to our starting rotation because you're taking the workload off of our bullpen, which is going to be the emphasis here in 2026. Now, over the next, as we get through, and we just began our second round of the rotations, okay, I hope that we can see some of these fine tunes measured up, and realistically, let's clean up some of our mistakes. The walks, the strikeouts can rise up, the walks can lower down, the hits can be contained, but 5 hits, 4 runs in 5 innings isn't too bad for a second outing for Andrew Abbott. I think when you look at this game and you look at the scenario, and the scenario pictures out with this, okay? Andrew Abbott is currently our ace pitcher that's going to get the ball every 5 days. And he is, with Hunter Green being out for the first half of the year, Nick Lodolo dealing with a, blistered finger, and that is affecting him. And I will talk about, when the next time the Reds could probably use him back up, which, I would hope that it's soon. When you look at our scenario and you consider that Andrew Abbott, if not Brady Singer, are our 2 best pitchers, at least 2 veteran pitchers on the roster, there is an expectation of a better performance. And we haven't seen that, right? And so, you can argue that right now we're not looking too good. But we got to remember, we're only 6 games into the season. This is Andrew Abbott's second appearance of the season, second start of the season, and we're going through the seconds of everything. And so when we have to give ourselves and give the players some time to adapt. And so a conversation we're going to have later on in this episode, reviewing the first 6 games, we're going to see now some great things coming from the Reds organization. And we really want to clean that up, but we have to allow some time for this Reds team to be able to, get acclimated to the everyday rotation, get acclimated to the every 5 days getting the ball to pitch. That is something we haven't done, that we don't do, we don't pay attention to in spring. Believe it or not, guys are playing 1, 2, maybe 3 days in a row before getting days off. They are, maybe getting a bullpen session instead of getting a start. Maybe they get a start on a Monday and then come back and get a start on a Tuesday, knowing that the workload isn't so great. So, and also the amount of at-bats, the amount of times in that lineup, having that regular lineup, knowing that there's really nothing going to change besides the players on the bench. And this is all despite, what the assignment is off the field, maybe on a practice squad or in the gym or whatnot. So, the numbers really aren't so fabulous, when it comes down to early on statistics for the Cincinnati Reds, but they were able to at least walk away this series, this homestands with a 3-3 record. I think that has to go for Nod, even though we have taken a step back and we have dropped a series. We won a series, we dropped a series, and so now we look ahead and we look to try to find a way to get back on the winning record. Right? It is easier. It is hard to catch up from a losing record. The good news that we could take away from yesterday's game is Suarez, who was not penciled in the lineup, by the way. He went 1 for 2, replacing Nathaniel Lowe as a DH, and he hit a home run. And so, we can add that. The player that we signed him to be, he delivered, although we didn't win. So, 6 games under the belt, and now it's time to look forward to what's next for us. And what is next for the Cincinnati Reds? Well, they are headed on the road. Okay, let's do our due diligence here. Pittsburgh is headed home. Okay, they had the 3-game series against the Mets over the weekend. They came into town. Now they're headed home back up north to Pittsburgh. and they are going to begin a 3-game series beginning Friday. First pitch 4:12, kind of awkward time, right? But against the Baltimore Orioles, and we have a story about Baltimore coming up here later in the hour. But that's what's going on for Pittsburgh. The Reds head over to Arlington to take on the Texas Rangers in one of a 3-game series over the weekend. First pitch is 4:05, and for the Rangers, it is their home opener. They just got done with a series against the Baltimore Orioles. They also, I forgot the opening series that they had, but we'll get more of that information heading into tomorrow's matchup, getting ready for their opener of the season. We have talked tremendously, right, about, how are the Reds panning out? And I want to be just realistic for everyone for a brief moment. And when you look at this statistics and what were the status over the last 6 games, I want you to give yourself an honest opinion about the Cincinnati Reds. Let me know down in the comments and get a part of the conversation. I want to know what you guys have to say about these Red Legs. Now, I want you to keep in mind, though, and I'm not saying, I'm not revealing this status so that we can bash the Reds. There's some good things we take it out of here. We'll get into here in just a moment. But it's also only 6 games. We have 156 games left in order to complete the season. A lot of things can happen. And like I said, we also finished off 3-3 in this stance. Now, did we have the opportunity? Did the opportunity present itself to finish 4-2 or 5-1? Yeah. And we had the ability to do that. But that didn't happen. So the first indication that we could take away from this series, that it's positive, this homestance, is that we did not have a losing record other than prior to day one. We finished 3-3, and now we get to return the page and start fresh coming up on Friday. So on opening day, we got shut out 3-0. We beat the Red Sox 6-5 on Saturday. We beat the Red Sox 3-2 on Sunday. We got shut out we shut out the Pirates 2-0 on Monday. We lost both Tuesday and Thursday with the final score of 8-3. So we got a chance to shut out a team. We've been shut out once. We won in extra innings. We won by 1-run games, and we lost 2 by at least 10 points. Now, if you add up our run score, so we have 6 plus 3, that's 9, plus 2, that's 11, plus another 6, that's 17. And then we've lost with the 3 plus 5, that's 8, plus 2, that's 10. Then plus 16, that's 26. So we're not looking so great when it comes down to run production. This is what it tells me. When we lose big. Right now, when we win by close margin games, and that's something that we need to change. The highest points that we put up in any game this past week has been 6 runs. The second highest is 2, or 3, even when we lost. So we got to find a way to get more than 3 runs scored per game. I don't know how we're going to do it. Maybe it's a lineup shift, but we have to find a way. So that's just what I get out of just looking at the record and looking at each ball game and their final score. Out of these 6 games, okay, Elly De La Cruz, Sal Stewart, and Eugenio Suarez was the only players, okay, to play all 6 games. Elly De La Cruz went 5 for 24. He hit 2 home runs, 3 walks, and 10 strikeouts. His batting average is .209. Sal Stewart was 9 for 19, 2 home runs, 7 walks, and 3 strikeouts, batting average is .474. Suarez, 5 for 23, 2 home runs, a walk, 10 strikeouts, and .217. So the 3 top players that we have the expectations of producing, and the only 3 players that play all 6 games throughout the course of the first part of the season here, these are the stats that we come across. What points out for me? Sal Stewart. The batting average is almost .500. And sure, that's only 6 games, but he's had 19 at-bats. He's also drawn in 7 walks, which if they were accumulated to be at-bats, they're about 26. Okay? He's only struck out 3 times, so he's making great contact. He's very plate discipline-oriented. And now you wonder, well, why is he placed in between Elly De La Cruz and Gino Suarez? Well, this is the prime reason, because he's productive. We need a productive at-bat. Elly De La Cruz, sure, you've had the 1 walk ratio. You've hit 2 home runs, a total of 5, a 6 there out of all these 3 players. But the batting average is quite slumptious. Now, we know that Elly De La Cruz is able to perform. When those bats arise, how long do we have to give before we can see that? That's to be honest, the question I ask myself. Suarez as well. But as long as guys like Elly De La Cruz and Suarez makes a name, and makes some sort of splash in every game or every other game, that right now we're not going to be too worried about it. The other thing is we're also seeing players such as Sal Stewart step up, which is important for commodity. Sal Stewart leads the team in the highest batting average, coming in at .474, while Dane Myers trails him at .444. So Dane Myers, another guy who came in as a trade free agency, whatnot, and he ends up having a higher batting average with fewer games played, not to mention, which tells me that he's utilizing his plate appearances, and he's making an emphasis of why Terry Francona mentioned, that he belongs in the major league roster come opening day. TJ Friedl is the only player who has stolen a base this far. Elly De La Cruz and Matt McLain has been caught stealing, and that actually comes to a surprise, right? Because to me, Elly De La Cruz is really good around the bases, and why couldn't he have stolen some bags yet? Suarez and Cruz are tied with the most strikeouts in the team stats, with a total of 10 each. 20. And if I'm not mistaken, I actually didn't really dive too deep into this. I think they in a combined 20, outbeat the rest of the team overall. That's not really a good stat, but we expect Cruz and Suarez to strike out a lot. Now, whether that's striking out swinging or that's striking out looking, I'm not too sure about that, but nonetheless, a strikeout's a strikeout. Sal Stewart stands alone with base on balls coming in at 7. TJ Friedl and Matt McLain comes in behind him as sitting at 5. A total of 5 position players who have a batting average below 100. Okay? That's TJ Friedl, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Noelvi Marte, Spencer Steer, and Tyler Stevenson. And Marte has not yet gotten on base, has not gotten a hit. So he has a 0 batting average. And yet, he's one of the players that we expect, or Terry Francona wants him to be an everyday starter out there in right field. Among our pitchers, we got Graham Ashcraft, Connor Phillips, and Pierce Johnson. None of them are starters, by the way, who have pitched in 4 outings out of the 6 games played. In addition, 4 pitchers have pitched for 3 of those games. Okay, so we're talking about workload in a sense. Emilio Pagan holds the highest ERA at 13.5. Now, that's not really, like I said, I know this early on, but that's not a stat that you want to hold with a really high ERA, considering that you was re-signed, Pagan was re-signed as a closer. Okay, giving up just 5 runs in 3 1/3 of an inning is not a good look. Two additional pitchers hold above a 10 ERA. And so if you think about whether they're coming from the bullpen or coming out of the rotation, it doesn't look promising. Okay. Andrew Abbott has the most strikeouts with 9. Ashcraft behind him at 8. Burns at 7 and Santillan at 6. And like I mentioned, you consider Ashcraft and Santillan comes off of the mound, or comes off out of the bullpen. Connor Phillips leads the Rocks with 5. Abbott and Santillan is at 4. Most hits allowed, Andrew Abbott's at 12. Williamson and Johnson's at 6. Singer and Pagan's at 5. So a lot of this stuff can be clarified and worked on as players get more out there on the field on a daily regimen, right? This is where, like I mentioned, it's the argument that, hey, it's too, how do I want to how do I want to look at it? It's too early to really tell you what this team has to offer throughout the course of the year. We've won a series, we lost a series. What we can look for and look according to is that how does this build come in the upcoming weeks? Okay, especially at a team that expects to contend in September. A lot of these things have to clean up. I mean, you can't have 5 guys with under 200 batting averages. You can't have 2+ guys leading the entire league with strikeouts without production behind it. And 2 home runs to 10 strikeout ratio, that's 20%. That's not, for me, that's not a good number. So it's simple things like those that need to be changed. And here's how we want, this is why I'm doing it this early in the season, because I want to be able to maintain this understanding of where this team is progressing at in week to week or whatever, however I plan on doing this, so we can really clearly identify what's working and what's not working, and we can look at the picture based off of those results. So the big question that you ask yourself, or I ask myself, understanding what we just reviewed, understanding where we're at 6 games into the season. We just wrapped up a homestands. We've had some injuries given. Okay, we're just started the whole second round of the rotation. How have the Reds done in their performance? Is it exceptional? Do you see potential? Okay, is Ellie De La Cruz going to come around and start batting .250? Are we going to see 40 home runs by Suarez come the end of the year? Is he going to pick that up? Okay, is Dane Myers is he the better position player out there than Noelvi Marte? There's guys that didn't make the list. Will Benson, Jose Trevino. Is it good to be recognized? Is it good not to be recognized at all? Are you doing just enough to keep your team floating, but not tearing it down? So, given that's only been 2 series of the season, I know it's not enough to really make an opinion, but at this far in this year, after week 1, how do you feel the Reds have done? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm really intrigued to seeing what you guys have to say, and I want to be able to respond back to a couple of you guys, have those open conversations that we could bring on our show. All right, the National League Central has been productive this week. All of them have days off today. They resume tomorrow. We'll get into the weekend action tomorrow. But started back on Monday, the Cubs beat the Angels 2-1. Then on Tuesday, the Cubs got shut out by the Angels 2-0. And when I see beat the Angels, it was 7-2, excuse me. And then on Wednesday, on Wednesday, the Angels lost to the Cubs 6-2. So the Cubs took 2 out of 3 against the Angels at home. They also sit right now at 3-3. Milwaukee and Tampa Bay. Milwaukee continued their homestands. They lost the first game 3-2 against the Rays. They came back to win 6-2 on Tuesday, and then they won 8-2 on Wednesday, taking the series 2-1. They also sit 5-1 so far this season. The New York Mets came over to St. Louis to take on the Cardinals in a 3-game series. Mets beat out the Cardinals in Game 1, 4-2. On Tuesday, the Cardinals shut out the Mets 3-0. And on Wednesday, the Cardinals beat the Mets 2-1 final in 11 innings. So the Cardinals have won back-to-back series to begin the season. And they have a 4-2 record thus far. So as of today, like I said, there's really not much, it's not a panic button by any means necessary. But Brewers sit on top of the division with a 5-1 record. St. Louis 4-2. Pittsburgh 3-3. The Reds are 3-3, and the Cubs are 3-3. It's Pittsburgh, Reds, and Cubs. Pittsburgh's obviously above Cincinnati, considering that they just took their series. So understanding in week 1 where we sit in the standings alone, we're 2 games out of first place. We're a game behind the Cardinals, which I am very impressed with the performance from the Cardinals. They actually made one of my top team, their impressive first impressions teams yesterday, and I am impressed by what I've seen from the Cardinals. This is a young team. It's a household team, and they are going to develop that way right now. They've had to make that change. It was something that was just avoiding the inevitability of changing, and this is a new era of St. Louis. Now, look, these young men that are coming into their own persons, that are trying to find their way through the big leagues, they're not the Colorado Rockies, I would say, but they do have the anticipation of coming into this season just a little bit more different than what we would be typically seeing. So, if we to come off 4-2, where I'm going to be honest, unless you're a Cardinals fan, I did not expect the Cardinals to begin the first 6 games 4-2. Did you? And maybe that's the underrated team of 2026. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and talk prematurely, but it's a possibility, no? So that very well impressed me. The Cubs 3-3, but are you worried about it? And I say not really. Now, I'm not trying to toot my own horn and say that, the Reds are better than the entire division. I mean, we just got beat in a series against the Pirates, and we emphasized throughout the entire beginning of this week the importance of getting out and winning a series, especially against the Pirates, who have not been an easy opponent for the Reds over the past few years. But the one thing we don't want to do, which leads into this coming up series this weekend, the first road stands, okay, is to separate ourselves at the bottom half of the division against the team at the top. So Milwaukee 5-1, we're 2 games back. We do not need to increase that because it is much harder to catch up. Same thing with the Cardinals, same thing with the Pirates and the Cubs. This NL Central may be a division that gets overlooked by many players, by many teams, by many divisions, and by different leagues. But in order for us to pull away victorious, to pull away positive out of this division, we have to simply win games that we should be able to win series that we should be able to win. So was there something that I didn't read into that we should have won or that we shouldn't have won in the series behind us? I don't know. Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts. You can weigh in as well. Let me just double check here. Check my notifications. My phone was going off quite frequent here moments ago. We are fine. Ready to go. So, all right. Well, so here's some other information coming around the baseball. The Dayton Dragons tonight, high A, single A team, is on the road out there in Lansing, Michigan, where they'll be taking on the Lansing Lugnuts, okay, the affiliates to the Athletics, at Jackson Field this evening. It's opening day for single A. It's a Thursday night. They have a 3-game series. They'll play tomorrow, Saturday. They'll have Sunday off. And on top of that, we see that the Reds have sent Nick Lodolo. He's not placed on the IL, but he was sent out to Dayton for a rehab start. So we understand that Nick Lodolo has been dealing with a blistered finger and it on his throwing hand, and it has impacted his ability to pitch. Well, it's a blister. There's really nothing much that we can do to recover any quicker other than time. Now, what the Reds hope to do is to send Nick Lodolo out to Dayton. Have him pitch just even like 2 innings, maybe even an inning, just to get the feel of if this blister is healing or if they're going to need more time. And I would envision, I don't have it right in front of me, like I said, will be more confirmation for tomorrow's show, but I'm envisioning that we will see Brady Singer, Chase Burns, and then Rhett Lauder in this 3-game series. Then Nick Lodolo is expected, I would expect to have an answer by Monday if Nick Lodolo will be good enough to start. Now, a 3-game series, I don't necessarily think that Nick will pitch tonight. Maybe start tomorrow. And that way, if he's good to go, like I said, an inning or 2, you could even slide Brandon Williamson up to pitch Monday and have Lodolo pitch on Tuesday. My fear is that this blister is going to be an ongoing issue throughout the course of the year. And if he's not ready to go out there in Dayton, they're going to put him on the IL. And then we start getting into, well, who's ready to be called up? Chase Petty, Julian Aguirre. So I really hope that this weekend, Nick Lodolo can find, whatever he needs to find. He is all healed up. He's ready to go for this series in Miami, because the Reds are coming up on a 10 consecutive game streak. They got 3 against Texas, 4 against Miami, and 3 back home against the Angels. But, Dayton Dragons are the affiliates to the Cincinnati Reds. They are a team that we support as we follow through minor league system. And they are a team that we aren't going to cover weekend or daily information, but we see young guys down there in the minor leagues. And we want to be able to watch out for these young prospects that's going to eventually make their way up through the farm system and possibly be a future starter as well. So one of the things we hope to accomplish this year is to provide you enough information about our minor league system so that you are more educated about what's going on down there on the farm. Talking about minor league systems, the Louisville Bats have been hosting the Iowa Cubs for the past couple of days. They have a 6-game series that began back on Tuesday. They wrap up on Sunday. But Iowa finally gave the Bats last night or yesterday afternoon their first loss of the year. On Tuesday, the Bats came in, beat Iowa with the final score 8-7. Yesterday, Iowa's bat were swinging as they came back to win 12-7, and the series is split 1-1. Like I said, there's really not much that we really want to tell off of this. It's just a clear just update of so far what's going on, considering that our Louisville Bats are our AAA affiliates, and there's guys like Will Banfield and J.J. Bleday, Reese Hines, and also guys like Chase Petty that are making their way through for if there needs to be a call-up. We want to understand who our options are and what progress have they made throughout the course of the year. So they continue it tonight, wrap it up on Sunday. Well, the ABS challenge system has been making its waves across the Major League Baseball community over the past a couple of days. Earlier this week, they've been, kind of the new headline for Major League Baseball in 2026. And last night or yesterday afternoon to say, it made headlines again as we learned that the ABS challenge ended up ending a ball game out there in Baltimore. This was an article that you could also read on our TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Another historical moment in yesterday's ball games as the Baltimore Orioles were wrapping up a series against the Texas Rangers, and it came down to the final strike of the game where we found the ABS challenge system making the decision, the ultimate decision. Okay, now let's give you some pre-contents heading into this. It was the top of the 9th inning at Camden Yards. Baltimore leading the Rangers 8-3. There were 2 outs, nobody on base. Pitch hitter Evan Carter was up on a 1-2 count, going up against right-handed pitcher Andres Suarez. Andres pitched a fastball, which landed at the upper outside corner on the strike zone. The Rangers' Evan Carter, he didn't swing, and the umpire, Manny Gonzalez, called it a ball. However, Baltimore's catcher Samuel Basallo initiated a late challenge on Suarez. The Orioles had gone 2-2 throughout the game on ABS challenges at the point. It had nothing to lose. After a review, the ball was overturned to a strike, striking out Evan Carter's to end the ball game. This honestly marks the history moment between Baltimore and the Rangers as the Orioles beat the Rangers 8-3, and the final pitch of the game was overturned. Though Baltimore didn't win the series, they avoided the sweep against the Rangers in this one. Now, the importance of this of this storyline. We talk about the ABS challenge. I have a different perspective compared to what other people have. And I do understand what other people come from. These whole ABS challenges hold the umpires accountable for not overextending and not making outrageous calls. It's happened. It's a human error. And at some point it does become a little much where then it takes away the ability for umpires could be biased. Because you can't tell me that an umpire doesn't get frustrated, doesn't get flustered throughout the game when he gets challenged by the pitcher, by the catcher, by the batters, by the coaches. He gets pestered. he gets frugaled, he gets distraught, and you go call a 2.5 hour game, which I've never done it. But I feel like that is a very complicated thing to keep accuracy. And my take on it is that, sure, we have this strike zone that is graphic design to fit the batter specifically, and that it changes per batter with height, size, the way he stands on the plate. But it also, to me, umpires have a tendency to also expand and to shrink. They have a tendency to call more pitches down below to some pitches high and in. And so you're cutting all of that out, and that's part of the human element. Now, that's where the ABS challenges come into play, and I'm fine with it. We've come to the day and time where we've seen enough of human error. But I'm not going to sit here and get after these umpires for making these mistakes. I'm not going to, it's like telling your batter not to strike out. They're going to strike out. And are you going to lash on them for every strikeout? Well, then hell, we should be pitchforks and steak knives to Cruz and to Suarez, because they struck out 10 times in the last 6 games. Unbelievable. So, I understand the ABS challenges are here. I understand they're here to stay. There's nothing that's going to change that. And, it's a new adjustment that everyone is still making, from catchers to pitchers. They're still, from the hitters, they're still adjusting to how and when to best use these challenges, just like umpires are trying to clean up the strike zone, just like coaches are trying to better coach their team. And I feel like there is an over-aggression that every time a call gets overturned, we have to rub it back in the umpire's face. And that's where I think I honestly draw the line at, is trying to run it back into their face, in my opinion. But that is me. That is just where, that's where I kind of just fill in, like, all right, enough's enough. And let's just move on from it. I wanted to see something here. One thing I'm trying to do, interactive settings. Live tab. Recommend if you want to interact with viewers. Distribution, maybe. Still trying to figure out how I could fix Facebook, because I am live on Facebook, but it's locked up and won't let me. Only I could see it. So I don't know how to change that. I still have to figure that stuff out. But I don't know. I do not know. Let's see here. Phone keeps on going off. All right, well, we're going to get back down into action here. We're going to shift our conversations over to the WWE. Drew McIntyre had spoke on the Chris Van Vliet insights about his title reign and what it meant to him. And I want to be honest with you. This is a really, I think, a very big professional move, in my opinion. I think that how do I best put this? I think that what he has to say was very unselfish. So, a little pre-contents on the road to WrestleMania. It took a turn on January 9th episode of SmackDown when Drew McIntyre defeated Cody Rhodes to become the undisputed WWE champion. Drew title's reign lasted under 2 months as Cody won it back on March 6th WWE SmackDown. Chris Van Vliet on Inside Drew spoke about the title reign. Here's what he has to say. He said, awesome. Nobody saw it coming, for one. I think everybody assumed that Cody Express would keep moving forward. He's been in that position for a long time. After he finished the story, he was on fire. I'm not saying he wasn't doing a great job. He's a great champion. He's a great performer. But it was a lot of the same. I think there needed to be a shakeup. And there was a shakeup that no one saw coming when I won it in Berlin. I got to agree with him. I think that Cody Rhodes is a great champion. I think that he has had a great title run. I think it was a perfect time to shake things up. We were talking about it heading into the new year because CM Punk was also going after the title. And we believed that a title change was needed to be done to spruce things up. Now, I don't know if the WWE has made, I don't know if there's anything else that you could possibly tell to keep the title on Cody. And this is where, for me, it feels a bit stale. Drew goes on to say, I could hear the crowd. I could hear the response. I could see the response. And it put Cody in a position where he had to chase. Right? I think that was one of the big, when you look back at the road to WrestleMania this year, it was bringing Cody back down to fight for something. Now, I'm not saying that he was the only option, but the WWE strongly felt like he was the best candidate, that you had to keep him fighting for something to climb, to keep this babyface relevant, and to keep people engaged. So you took the title off of him, which opened him up to a chase at the Rumble match, which there was a lot of great talent there. But then he ends up losing it. And then you go in and end up Elimination Chamber, and he ends up losing that. So it keeps the engagement going. Drew goes on to say, gave Cody a bit of an edge back, which he, in my opinion, just desperately needed it. Yep. For me, it gave me some of the legitimacy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Drew can win the big one, and not going to be so sympathetic that we need to start cheering for this guy if you feel so bad for him. Where I could be more of a I mentioned, if I got the title and people challenged me to a fight, what would I gain? No. I'm Gollum, the Lord of the Rings. This is my precious. I'm not letting this go no matter what. First paragraph makes a lot of sense. Let's dive into the second one. So it did a lot of things, but I know it made SmackDown a way more compelling at the time. It did. I got to agree with that. Especially so many people hate me for some reason. So now you got a champion right in the middle of the target on him. As Cody mentioned, it's not just we want the title. It's because you're I'm not going to say the word out loud. It starts with an A. They are all coming for you, which made SmackDown more interesting for me personally. I win it in Berlin. The next night was Glasgow. So I got to talk to Glasgow with the title for the first time as champion, with a live fan, while with the whole family in attendance. I tell Scotland, I promise you would bring you a champion, and I brought you a champion. And the only ever, not just Scotland person to do it, but British person to do it. Now, this is what I like about Drew McIntyre. For me, I would have told you I'd be upset. Because there's something that you're telling me about my title reign, about putting the title on me, even if it's for 2 months, that can't go into WrestleMania. And I have to settle with this. All right, now Drew McIntyre is going to have a WrestleMania match. He faces Jacob Fatu in an unsanctioned match. Cody will defend his title against Randy Orton also. And so both of them are going to have their WrestleMania moment. But when we look back on this, the process of elimination to get to this point, it really elevated SmackDown, its viewings. It wants you to tune in because you're right. You have this hated guy who whined and cried, time and time again, couldn't win the big one, and kept on pestering until he got what he wanted. He probably, as a character-wise, didn't deserve another title opportunity. Got one anyways. And although he didn't really win it fair and square, he ended up still walking away with it through the storyline that was being told. Now, as he mentioned, he was able to go on for a couple months, or at least several weeks, with this target on his back. He walked over Sami Zayn. And, it was his precious. It was his title, and he definitely defended it like it was his. I think Drew McIntyre made it work with what he had to work with. Okay? I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the logic. I don't agree with the timeline. I don't agree with the aftermath. That's just me. But Drew was able to best utilize it to his advantage and to the WWE advantage. And you would have to say that the WWE walked away victorious with this title reign because of Drew McIntyre. For all it levels up to Gunther, not elevating, but pestering ever since he's beaten John Cena in his retirement match. It's leveled up to Gunther, pestering and antagonizing the WWE universe after beating and forcing AJ Styles into retirement. This has pestered into during the time frame, into something where you would tune into SmackDown to see all these great opportunities. Hey, great, Cody Rhodes is finally going to be able to, shut Drew up and all that fun stuff. But then watch what happens. I'm going to cost Cody the title. I'm going to cost Jacob Fatu the title. And it's like, man, now I'm sitting here frustrated because we don't have a clear winner. What's the next moves? So I think I truly believe that this was a good reign, despite my beliefs of whether or not it should have been there or not, or it should have continued or not. Alrighty, something I'm not going to get into in this period, but coming out of WWE, something we really haven't talked about was NXT Stand and Deliver, which is their kind of big WrestleMania move. They are going to be hosting their show on Netflix April 4th, this Saturday. It's a little bit of a separation from WWE now, from WrestleMania. They feel, and it's at a different location, they feel like they want to create this image that doesn't piggyback off of the WWE. It's a lot of wrestling. It's a lot of drainage from SmackDown to Hall of Fame that night. And then you have to wake up early Saturday morning and have a NXT Stand and Deliver. Then you get it to night 1 of WrestleMania and then night 2 of WrestleMania. It was a lot. And then Monday Night Raw. It was just ongoing. It was a lot of stuff. A part of me, I enjoyed it. It was kind of one of those weekends where it's like, don't bother me weekend. And, you know, I don't necessarily follow NXT all that much, but it's just like professional, Major League Baseball. You want to understand who is, who's kind of the runners up. You know, it's because of NXT that we saw guys like Braun Breaker. It's NXT that we see guys like Sami Zayn and Finn Balor, Roman Reigns. Okay, it's guys like, it's places like NXT where we see Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. Which, by the way, those 3 call-ups from earlier this year, they all had matches on WrestleMania. So NXT is an important entity to the overall main roster, because almost everybody, and I say almost everybody, who you have seen on the main roster today has spent some part of their career before they got called up on NXT. Liv Morgan, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Tiffany Stratton, Rhea Ripley, okay, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Gunther, just to name a few. When Drew, I don't think it was Drew, maybe, no, Obafemi, Trick Williams, Javon Evans. Who else can I name out there? Talk about Sami Zayn. Talk about Carmelo Hayes, Ilja Dragunov, Austin Theory, right? They're just a handful of names. My point is that because of NXT, because of the developmental program, they have been able to have a success at the main roster level. So, NXT Stand and Deliver, we will review the matches tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll get you guys ready for the weekend of sports. Bearcats are on the road for baseball. They are taking on Oklahoma State in Big 12. We'll get you guys ready for that. The Reds are over in Texas to give them their opening day at home. We'll talk about that matchup and what to expect over the weekend. Also, WWE SmackDown on the road to WrestleMania continues. 12 matches have been announced for WrestleMania. 2 more are expected to still deliver. And updated stories that we need to know heading into the week. And all that is to come heading into our weekend coming up here on tomorrow. So we'll get you that tomorrow at noon. Also, I want to just thank everyone for tuning in. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Share this with a friend. Comment in the sections below. And we want to hear from you, the audience. So please let us know. You could also follow us on our social media page. We could be found on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Look, I'm trying to get to 500 followers on our Facebook page. We're almost there. Please help me get there. That way, more content can be coming out. We did have a Road to the Show series drop earlier this morning. Check that out. We'll have our MLB The Show recap heading into the weekend as well tomorrow, what you can expect. So much stuff and more as we get ready for Resurrection Weekend. And that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until tomorrow, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.